I'm thrilled to introduce my next guest at PagerDuty Summit 2020. This person is a phenomenal leader, a fantastic partner, and someone I call a friend, Andy Jassy, the CEO of AWS, or Amazon Web Services, as we all know it. Andy joined Amazon in 1997 as a marketing leader. In 2003, he founded Amazon Web Services with a team of just 57 people. And in 2016, Andy became the CEO of what we know is the very successful AWS that many of us have built our businesses and our products on. So Andy, thank you so much for being here. I'm thrilled to catch up, and I'm just sorry we can't do it in person. I miss our lunches.
Me too. And thank you for having me, Jen. I appreciate it. It's great to be here with you.
We are in some unprecedented times, and as much as I'm almost sick of talking about it, I think there's a lot to be learned over the period that we're in. And there has been quite a bit of innovation and change at scale. What have you learned in the last 6 months?
I think that we were really worried about going to a virtual only environment and working from home. But I think that while it's not as good as being in person, it's pretty close. And it's a lot closer than I think any of us imagined. I think also we have traditionally hired people where we have critical mass of people because we just think it's easier for them to collaborate and easier for them to have a career development path. But I think that the pandemic and the way that we've worked well remotely has made us much more open to hiring more people in kind of one-off locations if they have the right disposition to work collaboratively with people in the hours that they need to. So I think there are a bunch of things like that that make it easier for us to think about a world where we have people in more locations than we do now.
Totally. So much of that resonates with me. I miss that collective energy of building things together. I have found some of the most engaging meetings that I've been in where you feel a little bit of that electricity again when we've been doing executive briefings with customers, and we're all collaborating and we're sharing their problems and thinking through how our solutions can be helpful. And I know that customer obsession is a leadership principle for you, and from what I know of you, basically a way of life. So I'd love to hear what are some of the important elements that have enabled you to sort of observe this market and respond to your customers' needs so quickly, because it's just been admirable watching you scale and your teams innovate. And we certainly appreciate our partnership. But what is it about customer obsession that enables you to respond and move the teams quickly against those needs?
Well, I think that a lot of it has to do with our culture. Our culture is customer focused. Everything we do is driven by what we either hear from customers that they care about, or trying to read between the lines and try to invent on their behalf. And it was no different in COVID. So, really, if you the first thing customers said to us was, we need continuity. I mean, we're all moving home. We're not necessarily all set up to operate from home. And so a lot of what we spent the very earliest days of COVID thinking about, how can we make sure that all of our AWS customers who need to operate their businesses or governments from home can do so without interruption? How do we make sure we have enough capacity? How do we make sure we manage the supply chain right? Then the next thing we heard from customers was, gosh, it is such a difficult time for us. How can we save money? And so we have spent a good part of the last 6 months doing everything we can in the field with our customers, trying to help them optimize their costs, even though it's something that probably hurts AWS's overall financial performance in the short term. There was never a question for us. We're gonna always do what's right for customers over a long period of time. One of the great things about the cloud is that when you need more capacity, you seamlessly scale up. But if you don't need it anymore, like when you're in a pandemic, you can just give it back and stop paying for it. So a lot of people were able to save money. Really, again, when you have a culture that is driven by, you have the right customer feedback loops to hear what customers care about, and then you have good ways to take that feedback and get them to the builders and the decision makers, and your customer focus like we are, you're going to always have ways to help customers in times of crisis, which is what we try to do, like a lot of other people, during these last 6 months.
Well, we have talked before about how well aligned our cultures are, and our number one value is champion the customer. And we saw very similar experience during COVID with customers like Zoom and Netflix and DoorDash and even Nordstrom or Twilio, who, to your point, were all scaling up to meet the needs of this new kind of unprecedented environment. But incidents were scaling with them. And we're really thrilled that the PagerDuty platform not only held up very well in an unprecedented amount of scale and events coming across our platform, but our customers actually improved their time to resolve incidents by more than 20%, despite the fact that incidents were up 40%. And when you see that, it makes you feel good about the innovation that you've built. And we're able to deliver the level of scalability and resilience and security at scale for our customers because, we're built in AWS, and I think because of the support and partnership we've had from your team. So we really appreciate that. The cloud has been such a powerful tool to help companies scale and frankly reinvent their business models. And one of the things I've certainly seen is companies that relied heavily on brick and mortar environments to deliver their product to customers, to do work, to engage with customers, became online companies almost overnight, even though they weren't really ready for it. And the cloud has been such a huge tool in empowering that acceleration and enabling that for customers. But it's also hard. Let's not be shy about it. It's a hard transition. What barriers do you see that keep organizations from moving their workloads to the cloud? And you've had so much experience across so many companies. How can companies accelerate their cloud adoption to meet these new needs of what we really think is a digital default world now?
I think that COVID has pushed many enterprises toward the cloud. And it kind of happens when you have anything discontinuous, like a pandemic. Companies tend to take a step back and think about what they want to change strategically. Yep. I think a lot of companies that have been talking about this for a while are actually really either have or are in the process of really building transformation plans. So it's kind of interesting. The medium to long term, I think COVID has pushed a lot of companies to accelerate their mass migration to the cloud from where it would have been. I just think that there was, in the early days, there was just a fear of the unknown. It was a different type of model. People wanted to see other companies use it successfully and the platform work successfully. And while that was probably the biggest blocker in the first 8 years, in the last 6 years, I would say it's been probably, at least as big a selling point for the cloud and AWS as anything else, which is most people who watch how the cloud and AWS have operated and who do a thorough study of what security looks like in the cloud come away understanding that they have a better security posture in AWS than they do on premises. People have been doing things a certain way for a long period of time. What enterprises are fighting is inertia, and people who sometimes are managing it and aren't as excited about making that change and leaning forward to make the change. And what we've seen as the biggest difference makers between those who really make progress making this transformation into this next generation of technology versus those that just talk a lot about it are a few things. I think that, several of them, most of them, frankly, are not technical. They're mostly leadership. So you need a leadership team that understands why you want to do it, wants to take that journey of learning and evolving the business, wants to take that journey of reinventing, and then gets the team aligned, because there are lots of places in the organization that can block if you don't have the entire team aligned. And then along with that, you need the right top-down aggressive goal that forces the org to move faster than it organically otherwise would. And you see that all the time. I have loads of examples of this, but I always think about, if you look at GE and Jamie Miller, if you know Jamie, who was the CIO at GE for a while, she saw what they had coming and knew that they needed to transform their technology. And she told her team that we're going to move 50 applications to AWS in 30 days. And she said for 45 minutes, all our leaders told her what a dumb idea that was, and that she just listened and said, okay, I heard you, but we are going to do it, so let's go. And they got to about 42 in 30 days. But what they learned in the process was their security model and their compliance model and how to operate in the cloud. And they got success and built momentum. And then suddenly the ideas were coming from everywhere, which allowed her to take the next top-down goal, which was to move 9,000 applications in a few years to AWS. But they wouldn't have gotten there if they didn't take that top-down goal to force the org to move faster than they otherwise would. So, I think getting the right senior level alignment, having the right top down goal that makes the org know that you mean business, and then I think you got to train people. A lot of times you have these senior level conversations and you decide, we're going to move, and then you come back to your company and says, good news, here's the cloud, and you haven't trained anybody. And it's not, it's not that hard. It's not brain surgery, but it's different. You got to make sure you invest in training people, which is why we train hundreds of thousands of people a year for, a lot of our customers and partners. And, and then I think you got to build a thoughtful, sequential migration plan. And one of the mistakes I see enterprises sometimes fall into is that if they can't figure out how they'll move every last workload, they can get paralyzed. And the reality is, when you do these portfolio analyses, which we do with our customers all the time, you can pretty easily classify workloads into ones that are easy to move, medium hard to move, the ones that should go last because they have the most dependencies and legacy, ones that you can easily lift and shift, and ones that you need to re-architect before you put in the cloud. And the reality is that you can move so many of these workloads and get all the benefits of the cloud if you actually don't make it wait until you've got every last workload worked out, and you get all those benefits quickly. And also, by running that first set of workloads, it informs a lot of the ways that you're going to try to move the most complicated workloads later. And so those are some of the things that we've seen that are big difference makers between those who really make progress moving to the cloud versus those who just talk about it.
Well, I've been known to say that the technology problems are easy, the people problems are hard, because I do think most people are change averse. It's human nature. And PagerDuty, one of our number one use cases is cloud adoption. And GE, as you mentioned, is a PagerDuty customer. And where I think PagerDuty has been able to partner with AWS's customers is to help them get to more of a proactive stance from an operations perspective, to build a DevOps culture that creates service ownership, that gets people ready to take on the challenges that come with cloud migration, be not only in the right mind and have the right culture and have the right systems to detect issues early so they don't become bigger business problems, means the whole migration goes smoother. And shifting to our partnership, what role is our partnership playing in helping your customers thrive? I certainly understand the benefits that we've had in learning from you at AWS. We've always participated in reInvent. Our teams have been very collaborative. And of course, we've built one of the most scalable and reliable platforms in the world on AWS. So we're a great demonstration of the platform itself. But tell me a little bit about how you think about partnership.
Well, I think we have, we have a partnership that goes back a while and that's been very close. I mean, I don't have to tell you that PagerDuty was built on top of AWS, and we have, we have a lot of joint customers. You talk about, how are you helping our customers? They're really our joint customers. And you look at companies like GE and Capital One and Electronic Arts and Cisco and Vanguard, who all use, our products in conjunction. And, and we have very tight integration across our products. And to me, if you're a company that cares about availability, to have the ability to mitigate customer impacting issues proactively by automatically being able to turn signal into insight and action, which is really what PagerDuty does on top of AWS. If you care about availability and you're not interested in that, I would argue you don't care about availability. I mean, I think that I think this time that we've just gone through in the last 6 months, where everything was thrown up in the air and nobody really knew what was going to happen and how much your business was going to surge, or even in cases where your business was contracting. A lot of our very large customers who have struggled during the pandemic had huge volumes of people effectively calling with questions or canceling or trying to figure out how to reschedule what they were going to do. I mean, you had all kinds of uncertainty in situation that you hadn't encountered before. And availability at the end of the day, that is for a lot of us that have products that have a technical interface, which anybody who has any kind of technology application, the technology underpins it and is, a big part of the customer experience. If you don't have the right availability, you don't have a customer experience. And so to me, like, if you care about availability, if you care about continually improving what you're doing and changing that customer experience, if you're not using PagerDuty, I think you're missing the boat. And I think the partnership that we've built over the years has made it quite easy for our joint customers to be able to use our services in conjunction. And that matters a lot. Our customers tell it matters, and it matters to us too.
Absolutely. And when our customers are under stress, the last thing we want them to have to worry about is how to stitch two important solutions together. It has to just work, and it has to work really, really well. Andy, it is always such a pleasure to spend time with you. I always learn something, and we are very committed to our joint customers and to ensuring both your success, but importantly, that as customers adopt the cloud and they modernize their IT environments and they look to create wonderful, consistent digital experiences for their own customers, that we play a role in ensuring that as they shift from things being pretty structured and pretty predictable to a world that is a lot more unpredictable and spontaneous and yet time sensitive and emergent, that PagerDuty, along with AWS, can support them in being successful in that journey. So thank you so much for being with us today. I really, really appreciate it.
And thanks for having me, Jen. I always enjoy spending time with you. And as we've talked about, I think the partnership is really strong, and I continue to look forward to listen to what customers want us to do more of together and making that happen.